But I see it as a way, really, of pushing this Latino congregation into another level of influence, of experience as they come into contact with white business people and, young Latino corporate executives, and also those people are also impacted by undocumented immigrants and poor, illiterate old ladies with powerful spirituality, with sacrificial giving and serving. And these two groups come together and they mutually reinforce and strengthen each other and push each other forward. And so for me, I think that it's a more forceful way of pushing our Latino community. But I see it as a much more respectful way. I'm saying, hey, not only should you be blessed by, getting money from white people to do the things that we need to do. No, you have a lot to give yourselves, and you need to be sacrificial. You need to donate time and space and so on, because you have agency. You are children of God, and you have been called to bless this culture. And I think that that's a more kind of a more forceful way of bringing our ethnic communities into progress, as opposed to, you poor people, you've been so downtrodden, you've been so oppressed by the white man, and cultivate your resentment and your sense of victimhood. Which I think, again, there's a level, there's a place for that. There's a place for that. But hey, you also have the power of God with you, and you have such richness of culture and heritage. But use that also to push yourself.
And what I hear you saying is a part of the greatness of making this a great church. You haven't used that word, but it's a matter of sacrifice. And let's do what's best for everyone. There's a sense in which it's the common good. What makes a great joke? It's a great joke if everybody laughs. Everybody understands that there's a sense of joy, and humor can bring people together. It's a bad joke. It can be a bad joke if it's vulgar, offensive, but it can also be a bad joke if the joke is at somebody's expense and it's painful. Because there are jokes where we tease people, but even that can be fun. What makes a great basketball team? Right now we're watching the NBA playoffs. Well, one is if they're a winning team, we consider them a great team, but also if it's a team where the owner and the coach and the players, the five guys on the court, they're working together, they're moving the ball around, and whether they're the highest scoring player or the person who is the top rebounder, they all share the joy, and even the people on the bench. This is a great team to be a part of. Well, it's a lousy team to be a part of when there's one star who gets all the attention, all the rewards, and he's arrogant and doesn't share. So what does it mean to be a great church? Well, the great church reflects the creator of the church, Jesus Christ.
And you're pushing that into great America as well.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with that. Because there's a sense of, if you look at a church and say, they really care for each other. They love God. They love other people. Like, wow, what a great group to be a part of. They're not selfish. Well, then what makes a great country? Where it's great for everybody who's there. And for the person who's just come, let's say the immigrant who's just come, whether they've come with much or with little, there's an opportunity for them to contribute. It's like, what a country. And we welcome that person and create opportunities. Here again, with my experience having lived and worked overseas so much of the time, when I rent cars at airports, I usually rent from Hertz. And when I return the cars, there are often people there who have name tags that indicate they're from other parts of the country, other parts of the world. They often have the home country on it. And I will often ask them, what did you do there? I can remember one time encountering a woman from Peru who was an elegant-looking Hispanic woman. And I said, what was your job there? She said, I was the secretary to the president. The president was Fujimori, a man of Japanese. I thought, here's a woman who's returning cars. And she worked in the presidential palace. Well, how do we treat people with dignity that no matter if we know their story or not, it's like, you must have worked for the king. Perhaps you're a child of the king. There's this sense of, without even knowing you, I'm according you dignity. That makes a great country.
Yeah, now, in all fairness, Doug, I would say that people would come back to you. Some sectors of right now, this political dialogue would say to you, well, we agree with you, Doug. I mean, we agree that immigrants make for a stronger church, but let them come in legitimately. Don't let them invade our country through the river, and don't let them come in uncontrolled, just to bring all their needs and all their massive
and I would agree
humanity.
With that.
Let them come in. We have established, just like other nations do, we have established legitimate mechanisms for them to come in. So let them come in that way, the way others came in, in the 19th century, the Irish, the Italians,
I'm afraid,
so I'm pushing back a little bit because, in all fairness, we need to represent that, and that's what we often do not do. We oversimplify the position of the opponent. I'm not going to call him enemy, in order to make our point. And that's not what you're doing, but I'm just forcing myself as a Latino who loves my own undocumented.
Maybe we should switch chairs because you're sounding kind of like a white guy.
I know, and that's the ironic.
And maybe I'm sounding like
I'm
sounding like maybe an African American or a Latino.
So I'm pushing. I don't necessarily espouse that. I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying that this is a. I could give you the other piece as well of my thinking, but we need to include that to make our argument as encompassing and as complex as
right.
It
No,
requires.
I have a passport with many visas and many stamps, and I respect the sovereignty of nations, and I respect for them to protect their people, their economies, their culture, their way of life, and so I do think that people should come here legally. Whether I'm a progressive or a conservative, as a Christian, I think there should be a sense of truth, fairness, justice, compassion. And so I realize that there are some people who are coming here who are desperate. I look at South Africa, the country of South Africa.
That's an important piece.
And I see people who've come over from Zimbabwe, and they're thieves and they're robbers. Why? In many cases, they're fathers. There is no possible way they can get a job or government assistance. They've got children. So what do we do in cases like that? They break into people's homes. I have friends in South Africa who are wealthy people who live, they say, in prisons because they've got fences and guards and lights. But they're wrestling with how do we deal with this reality? And so I think to say, and realize, I'm from the Midwest. I was raised in a God-fearing Republican family. But I've changed because of my encounter with others. So it is a tension. And I realize that many people who have suffered economically perhaps, they resent people who they feel have impoverished their own situation. Now that's a matter of, there's not a simple answer, but there are answers. And I think as we look at the matter of illegal immigrants, we must bring together Latino leaders who understand better than any of us the realities, as well as people who've contributed greatly and people who have gone into lives. We look at all of this and say, what's the best thing to do? What's fair?
Can we agree that not all illegal immigrants are Latino?
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Because I think that again, that how we define things is a frame.
Because I read recently there are 10,000 illegal Irishmen in this country.
Yeah.
Okay. But so right now,
that's the point.
And also, I mean, we realize that here many things, we are not completely represented. We've got an African American, a Latino, a white person. We don't have an Asian American. We don't have a Native American. We do not have a Middle Easterner. We're all men. But we're friends, and here we're talking about these things, but we're trying, as you just said, let's be mindful of. And so I think, okay, let's take that into account. So I think that, what we're looking for is what's fair. I'm not sure if I'm here legally or not, because when my relatives came to Salem in 1632, I don't think they had a passport or a visa.
They had permission from the
so
Indian
it's
immigration
possible
agency.
it's actually legally possible. There's some laws like if you can't demonstrate that your family came here, it's like I'm going back to England, which I wouldn't mind. But here we are in this reality. So,
well, again, maybe it's a question of instead of saying let's make America great again, maybe just let's make America greater. Well, that's one possibility. But here's something that
I would say let's make America whole. Right now we are a broken society. Something is sick in our culture. Something is broken in our churches. And so I think when we think of the biblical concept of shalom, when there is a sense of peace in our city, when there's a sense of peace in our home, families that were happy families that then have become broken, are like, how do we make our family great again? Remember back when we were young and the children were small, and there was a time of love. It's like, that was before we had so much money and so much this and the other, and now we've just kind of fallen apart. So there are certain moments that we can point to that, as a 64-year-old man, I wish I could go back to when my children were all younger. That was a great time. But there's no way that now I've got grandchildren, and I'm grateful for that. So we all have these wonderful times in our life. It's like, what was it about that? There was a sense of nurture. There was a sense of security. There was a sense of opportunity. So now that my children are grown and they're scattered, how do I help create that possibility for their children? But how do I, as a grandfather, and you're a young father, I'm concerned that do you have sons? Mm-hmm. I'm concerned that your sons have the same kinds of opportunities that I had. Mm-hmm. That they're not having to say, Daddy, what does it mean when somebody calls me this or that?
Right.
That they would have the opportunity to participate in schools, be a part of athletic teams, clubs, education. It's fair. That's only fair.
Yeah, but they won't. They won't because they've attained it already.
But we can't rest. I mean, we will not rest until the kingdom has fully come.
But it depends on your perspective, because I don't have the memory that you have of things being good.